Hi, my name is Ingrid Gorman, and this is my last class for the master's program in data analytics at the University of Maryland, University College. I am actively involved in two local arts and culture nonprofit organizations and was recently hired for one to increase funding levels in order to sustain music and dance programs for at-risk children in the DC area. I wanted to embark upon a project that could possibly have impact in that regard on the two organizations that I dedicate time to. One is a volunteer, and I do feel strongly and in my heart that exposure to the arts early and for a long period of time benefits growing brains, transfers over to other areas of life and school, adds to self-esteem, and keeps students engaged who might otherwise give up on their academic program. Data Analysis Project Description. My aim is to produce new information that supports fundraising for the arts nonprofits. I want to attempt to add to the body of work already available. I want to find strong correlations between arts exposure and cognitive ability improvement, engagement, college readiness, and attitudes. And I want to try to establish more causality than currently exists in studies that have utilized big data sets. So, in more detail, the aim of this project is to find correlations between exposure to the arts, music, dance, drama, creative writing, either in school or in leisure time, and cognitive ability improvement, increased college readiness, and overall engagement with school or enjoyment of life in general. Many previous studies utilizing very large data sets have shown correlations but not causality. This is because successful experiments generally need similar populations to start and a control group in order to gauge changes in cognition or attitudes due to exposure to the arts. Otherwise, it is not possible to know if people with a proclivity to get involved with the arts are already more advanced in verbal or mathematical or other cognitive abilities, or just more engaged in life and school in general. Many studies have been done in experimental manner and have shown positive results, but they tend to have very small sample sizes, and some are qualitative in nature. In order to add value to the body of work that exists, I hope to use large longitudinal data sets that can be divided into similar populations grouped by demographics or geography or other characteristics, then follow those groups over time to gauge changes in cognitive ability or attitudes between groups that participate in the arts and those that don't. I selected this project because it relates directly to local nonprofit arts organizations I work for. One is a volunteer as vice president, and another for pay, starting in June 2019. I am hoping that the results of the study will help each organization be more successful in fundraising for this important endeavor. So far, I have sourced two large data sets. I'm using two that are provided by the US government. The first is an annual survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's called the American Time Use Survey, and it was specifically called to look at art activities. And this one is from 2003 to 2017. It measures how time is used, including time spent with the arts, and it's nationally representative. And it also logs school enrollment rates, dropout rates, and engagement, such as level of boredom. The second is a longitudinal study which follows persons, the same people, over different years, and it's produced by the Department of Education. It will look at all kinds of different school activities, including arts, band, choir, participation in dance, academic performance, dropout rates, and so forth. The longitudinal study contains variables related to mental and verbal ability via standard testing. I do not think that these data sets can be linked directly because for this study, you need to look at the same person and look at or very, very similar people in order to ascertain the effects of arts exposure on academic performance or other indicators. They're different studies and cannot be linked. However, I am also looking at a supplemental data set to add in approximate household income by zip code in order to help create similar control and test groups, as I mentioned earlier, by which to divide the data sets. I have downloaded that data. In describing the data sets in more detail, I'll start with the American Time Use Survey, the ATUS. There are 191,000 records and 455 variables available. I chose just 17 variables to keep for the data set that I pulled into RStudio, and those relate to participation in the arts, academic achievement, and of course, demographics. This data set is nationally representative, and it asks questions related to time spent with music, art, and so forth, and other characteristics such as employment, earnings, and school enrollment, as well as time spent watching TV and indicators of boredom in school. It also tracks all kinds of other time use activities such as personal care, travel, and consumer purchases, but these are not relevant to the study, so they're discarded. Demographics of respondents include age, sex, race, ethnicity, labor force status, earnings, occupation, education level, and marital status. Therefore, participation in arts-related activities can be compared to achievement levels in education, earnings, and general level of active lifestyle. The ATUS measures how people divide their time among life's activities. Individuals are randomly selected from a subset of households that have completed their 8th and final month of interviews for the current population survey. They are interviewed once and asked about how they spent their time on the previous day. Therefore, memory is fresh. Though the survey is continuous and can track how people are changing how they are using their time over time, it does not survey the same people. ATUS covers all residents living in households in the United States that are at least 15 years of age. Therefore, it will be possible to isolate some of the young people still in school. Approximately 26,000 households are surveyed annually. Different modules have been added periodically at different times, sponsored by various organizations. For example, there is a well-being mode, which might be useful for relating engagement with arts-related activities and how these experiences affect mood. For the longitudinal study of American youth, there are 15,000 records and 66 variables pertaining to participating in various school activities, including various types of arts, like choir, dance, band, and so forth. It also includes information about participation in clubs, student council, science fairs, as well as academic performance quartiles, verbal and math ability, and standardized test scores. Also included are dropout rates. Often, analyses published in the literature analyze all students as one group, but I also included here English as a first language and second language to at least cut the group by that variable. My aim is to try and compare arts-exposed student groups in more apples-to-apples methods, accounting for household income or parents' education levels, as well as immigrant status and other characteristics that might relate to involvement with arts activities. In terms of data preparation requirements, these data sets are government issued and already clean. There are no missing values. They are ready for download by data scientists, and ready for evaluation. However, all the variables are numeric and thus must be decoded. The U.S. Census zip code data will be appended if either data set has a geographic variable, and I am exploring that currently. The data analysis strategy, as I've already mentioned, is to attempt to create subgroups of students of similar age and other similar demographic characteristics. One group is exposed to arts and the other is not. Compare dropout rates, engagement, and academic achievement. Follow them over time, if possible. Ideally, I would start with subgroups that look similar demographically. Both have no exposure to the arts, but one group does go on to be exposed to the arts. And then you analyze those compare the cognitive abilities or other characteristics such as engagement in the beginning and then later after exposure to the arts. Big data analyses to date do not demonstrate causality. They only show correlations. So I'm going to attempt to compare like groups as opposed to the broader sample that has been researched and published so far. I will also attempt predictive models and try to predict dropout rates given exposure to the arts and how those might be reduced if arts programs are added to curricula. I will also attempt to predict academic performance given exposure to the arts at early ages. And I do expect to find positive cognitive and beneficial engagement differences with exposure to the arts. In lessons learned, a solid literature review has already been conducted. First, I went through a report entitled Critical Evidence: How the Arts Benefit Student Achievement, written by Sandra Rupert. Her main source was a compendium of research studies on this topic compiled by DC and references in the appendix. Here's a quote from her. A growing body of studies presents compelling evidence connecting student learning in the arts to a wide spectrum of academic and social benefits. Additionally, research has shown that what students learn in the arts may help them to master other subjects such as reading, math, or social science. I have looked at close to 30 studies, some utilizing big data, others set up as experiments with control groups, and some qualitative in nature. And as I said before, the big data sets have found correlations, but not causality. The next steps is to liaise with a friend of mine, a professor of string pedagogy at Case Western Reserve, for advice on supplemental data sets that I may add to this analysis and initial thoughts about what is missing from this body of research. In terms of getting started with the actual analysis of the data, I want to recode the variables, define my subgroups, and start running correlations. The above reference list here contains articles as well as professional compendiums of studies related to evidence of the effect of the arts on student achievement. And I plan to include that literature review in the appendix of my report. I am very grateful in advance for your feedback on the progress on my project so far and what insights you might already have or approaches you might suggest to make this successful. Thank you so much for your time and good luck as well on your projects. And I look forward to seeing what you are trying to analyze in this last class at UMUC. Thank you.